Welcome to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Woldridge, Brock Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Good morning and welcome into Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego Sports Leader, the mighty 1090, and last live show of the year. We made it once again, and so thank you guys for everybody who stuck with us, and we appreciate everybody hanging in there, and man, it'll be the last time I see your guys' smiling faces of 2014.
After that football game last night, we're not stopping smiling until
Holy smokes. That was amazing. Chargers can't break your heart in the last week unless they give you hope. And so classic Chargers victory in December. Somehow, some way, found a way to get it done.
I know. I always see that stat on how good they are in December, and I just want to see a stat that somehow they get good in January. But so far, it's not the case.
I just got a funny message on Facebook from a listener, Brock Halter, saying, "Hey, Scott, are you guys going to be on the air this morning?" Never mind. This is we had Chargers talk here. We're good at that, aren't we?
Wow, that was a pretty quick reaction.
Yeah.
Well, there's another Brock who is joining us via the hotline. He's taking the family up to his ski chalet up in Idaho. And Brock Glover joins us. Brockster, how you doing, buddy?
What's going on, guys? Happy Merry Almost Christmas and all. And
we're still celebrating, Brockster.
Yeah, that was. I know, Scott, it was well past your bedtime.
It was,
but
I knew I had a feeling in my bones they were going to win. But I thought if I watched the rest of it, I was going to jinx them. So I did everybody in San Diego a favor by going night-night.
You didn't stay up?
I can't, man. That's like it was past like 8:31 or something.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, and we have a very special guest coming up here next segment. Jared Mees, 3-time AMA Grand National Champion. You can follow him on Twitter at jmees1, and he's excited. I know he's already retweeting you, Paul, and so we're going to talk to Jared next segment. But right now, let's get started with Paul's news.
Nobody knows the news better than Bike Week Radio Show.
This was an age when only men were allowed to read the news.
And only Bike Week Radio Show has Paul Carruthers.
Hey, I'm here. We can do the news now. It's all right, everyone. We can do the news. Hold on. Everyone, why are we all standing around? Let's go.
Well, I think we should... I think this news segment is probably going to be dominated by talks of Adderall. James Stewart, supercrosser extraordinaire, a very popular rider in the series, and
Adderall taker.
So. He was handed a 16-month suspension by the FIM for failing a drug test for Adderall. He finally came out and actually talked about it a little bit. He chose to do so via his Instagram account. He basically said that how disappointed he was, obviously, and admitted to the fact that once he got the news that he was even thinking about just throwing in the towel and quitting.
Calling it a day.
And then he said he was, and to quote him, the support from the fans this last 24 hours had me nearly in tears, and has made him ready to fight and continue his career. So we're going to have to wait and see where that goes. But, there's an appeal process that he's obviously started. And, it's one of those things that's kind of difficult to I don't really have a firm opinion either way, except that I'm disappointed that the whole thing has happened because, he's a big star and that's a big series. They're getting ready to start the series in Anaheim, and one of the series stars won't be there.
Yeah,
and I think it's just a bad
the timing
deal.
of the announcement. Yeah,
I mean,
I
feel bad for the guy because careers in that sport aren't that long. He's already had a fairly long career, but he's missed some time. He's missed races. He's been injured, and it's just it's just hard for me to imagine him sitting out a year. I mean, and the other thing is he obviously failed the drug test, and he's not the only person that's taken the drug test. So he's failed the drug test, but they've just thrown the book at him, and I mean, it's not like a paperback; it's like a hardbound War and
like
Peace.
the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Exactly, the entire set. So it's, I don't know. I just don't think the punishment fits the crime, and I'm not even so sure, how bad the crime actually is the thing I'm getting to. And I don't, Brock, I'm sure you have some opinion on it. What does this mean? What do we do going forward here, do you think?
Well, I know it is. I mean, it's kind of an odd. To me, it's odd anyhow. I mean, it's a 16-month period. Why wasn't it 12 months? Or why isn't it just 1 year? Or why do they just randomly pick 16 months? I don't know that. Second of all, I mean, of course, everybody has opinions on it, but I feel like, what were you thinking, James? First of all, I mean, WADA, USADA, the anti-doping agencies for the U.S. and go ahead, Scott.
No, go ahead. That's you.
Okay, sorry. It's just they knew the banned substance. They knew it was on the list. He has people that help him. He's got staff. As we all heard, he has a nurse that shows up at races. So anybody that he needed professional advice on, he could have gotten the professional advice, and he didn't. And he should have known that the drug was on the banned substance list, and if he's going to use it, he's going to have problems. And he should have had the approval before he did it. And that's a good question. And he sure went silent a long time too. After it happened, nobody talked, and to use the Instagram account to be how he speaks with people is kind of probably a little weak effort from their camp.
So sitting out a year, because effectively he will be. I mean, what's that do to a career like a guy like James Brocky? I mean, you've worked enough with him, and he's been around for a long time, even as young as he is. What will that do to him if he decides he's not retiring? I mean, jeez, how do you lose a year and still be in the game?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and I know what it did to me when I broke a navicular, the bone in my wrist, and it's a peak of my career, and I certainly wasn't out 16 months. I was out a long time, and it didn't heal properly, so it kept me out even effectively a little longer than that. But it was, it really hurt my career. James is probably a lot more talented than I was after on a motorcycle, so maybe it won't affect him as much. But he's not going to be coming back at 22 years old. He's going to be coming back in his 30s, and it's it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Somebody posted something. We talked about it just in the pre-show, but somebody had posted something last night that said, here's a topic of discussion. Weighing in on James being bumped because of this FIM decision. Would we, and it was a broad brush thing to the sport, to athletes, to fans, would we care if Supercross was not FIM sanctioned? What would be the ramifications of that? And what would people care? Would the ticket buying public give a hoot whether FIM was a sanctioned, if they sanctioned the event they're watching or not?
Well, the problem I have with that, with somebody not sanctioning the event, is then you have the promoter making the call on things like
on
this.
Everything.
Well, yeah, and I just think that makes it not a legitimate sport. I think you have to have an impartial group making decisions when things like this happen, because if it's a promoter, what are they going to do? James Stewart's going to race at Anaheim.
Without a doubt.
Right? So what kind of precedent does that set for people doing illegal things? I mean, where you draw the line.
I mean, ESPN did it with X Games. I mean, when I last checked in, ESPN pretty much just, they design the sport, they hire the athletes, and they just say, there it is. It's a made-for-TV event. It's, at one time it was, I believe, AMA sanctioned, which I guess in turn would be FIM sanctioned. But then they said, it was too much of a obstacle to work around, so they just do it without.
Right, but I think you also at some point have the risk of turning a sport into a show. You know what I mean? You kind of lose the sporting aspect.
I don't disagree.
You lose the sporting aspect if there's nobody to govern the sport. Again, from a neutral viewpoint, because then then there's sponsors that run the thing, and the promoter, and if it was sponsors and the promoter running the show right now without any kind of sanction whatsoever, then I think James Stewart wouldn't be suspended. And it's a bad deal. I mean, I think James Stewart was obviously made a mistake, and was probably stupid in doing what he did based on knowing what the rules are. But the thing that upsets me is I feel bad for the guy who works on James Stewart's bike. I feel sorry for Yoshimura. I feel sorry for Suzuki. I feel sorry for all the innocent parties.
Yeah,
that
how
have
many
a
paychecks result from James racing?
Well, exactly. There's somebody there making a huge investment in this guy being able to race, and now this guy's done something that's made it so that
done.
and it makes
Definitely
it so
ripple effect.
Yeah, it's and to me that's the worst part of the whole deal.
I can't understand why you can't fill out the paperwork. Everybody can get Adderall. I mean, you just say, yeah, I can't focus. You go to any doctor, and it seems like every kid in high school and junior high is on Adderall. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to get a prescription, and then you should just be able to file paperwork, say, hey, I need this. Doctor prescribed it for me. It's part of my prescription
I stopped
medicine.
taking it before the show because of the copay is off. So.
Well, if you hear 5 minutes of Bike Week radio show, you know we are substance-free because there's zero focus from this group.
None.
Right. Well, it's like Brock said.
guy?
It's like Brock said. He surrounds himself with enough people that even if he doesn't know or he's busy thinking about
somebody
something
in the
else,
food chain
somebody,
should have been aware.
whether it's your dad, your trainer, your nurse, your whatever, should say, hey, this is what we need to do for you to continue to take this medicine that you need for your issues. And for nobody to do that, again, that it just comes down to, there's a lot of punishment dished out for one
It'll
guy's
be an
mistake.
interesting topic to follow. I mean, this is we've only just begun.
I'm back, you guys. But, I'm not sure what you guys covered on this thing. But, I guess what did they expect from this thing? They didn't deal with it properly, and it's been poor dealings the whole way. And let's look at the logical thing. I don't know what have you guys heard. I heard one story say, well, this was the first time he'd ever taken the drug. He got it from some guys that played on the Seattle Seahawks. And, I was like, where did that story come from?
I met a guy at Burger
laughing.
King in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's like, okay, where did that story come from? So, I think we've talked about this Adderall thing before, and it's very, very, I guess, it's commonly used, in my understanding from inside people, it's commonly used in the NASCAR world. Who in our sport is closest to the NASCAR world?
JGR?
Who did James Stewart ride for quite a few years ago?
Joe Gibbs Racing.
Who did James Stewart ride for when he had a 20-some second lead at Daytona and crashed just seemingly on a pretty simple section of the track, just going through the motions before he took the checkered flag to win the race?
There you go.
I can understand the NASCAR guys needing that, too, by the way, because wouldn't you fall asleep from just driving around in circles?
Well, I spoke to a guy, and he's
that
a
was
team
harsh.
owner, and the guy said point blank, we used to crash cars all the time at the end of the races. At the end of these 500-mile races, we'd wad them up. Half of them would go across the finish line on their lid. It would tear the cars up. The races, we didn't want our cars stored up. We didn't want the guys crashing across the finish line the last lap, taking themselves out. And you know what? Once a couple of drivers started taking it, it went through the paddocks like wildfire. And now, in his words, 90% of the guys in the starting line in the NASCAR race are taking Adderall. Now, is that true or not? I don't know. But when a team owner tells me that, I have to tend to believe him. And, so the point is, there's a lot of legality of this whole thing. ADHD is a protected class. If he really needed the drug, then he could have used it regardless, and he could have gotten a permit to use it. And so, or a conditional, I forgot the terminology they use for it, but it's basically you get an exemption to use it prior to, while he's racing. So he could have gotten a prescription. He could have gotten the okay to use it. But why wouldn't you claim, because it's all private, why wouldn't he have claimed in the beginning of it to the FIM and that he needed this drug to live a normal life?
Maybe he just figured it wasn't going to be that big an issue, which he's learned now. It's a huge
But when
issue.
it's on the banned substance, wouldn't you just give that little that list? Wouldn't you just kind of glance it over and you realize, the stuff that I take's on there?
Right. You don't have to look at the entire list. You just look at the prescription in your right hand, and you compare it to the list in your left hand, and you go, oh,
you
that's
just
me.
check it off.
Oh, and it's a common prescription. It's not like it's buried in the fine print. It's probably at the top.
Right. So that
Adderall.
that points back to, hey, he didn't have a prescription for it. Or if he had a prescription to get the drug, he didn't, it wasn't on the up and up or something. That's why it's like, yeah, you got the prescription in hindsight. Yeah, after the fact, you got a post-dated prescription or something. So that's why it looks fishy. I mean, if I look at my common sense tells me, my common sense tells me he probably got introduced when he rode JGR. That's my common sense. But is that true? I have no idea. I have no clue. But I'm just saying the logical side of things, that's probably, that would have made sense. I mean, why wouldn't it? If that was something that the Joe Gibbs team, I mean, they're a top-notch team. They know they're not leaving any stone unturned in their NASCAR camp, so I'm sure they don't want to leave any stone unturned in their motorcycle racing. And they know in motorcycle racing that the rider has 90% to do with the success, and in NASCAR it's probably only 40%.
Here's a silver lining to all of this. I'm looking on Facebook now, and here's even McGrath, Jeremy McGrath. He did an Instagram post that says, hashtag free Bubba. And
of course.
It's now I'm seeing T-shirts have popped up, stickers. I mean, this has created a groundswell of movement that it's a lot of people are waving a flag for James Stewart, but we saw Bobby, you had on, I think just on Fox Sports, one of the lead stories was about, the banned substance and about James Stewart and about Supercross. So all of a sudden Supercross is in the news, probably not in an ideal format, but controversy in the news game is ideal. So,
Any publicity.
So,
good publicity.
From my side of things, too, having lived it my whole life, I personally, I'm sick and tired of these guys making a rule. If it's the FIM or if it's the AMA, particularly AMA, has a long history of making rules, and then all of a sudden when an infraction happens, it turns all gray. It turns like bend the rule. It turns, who, behind the scenes, behind someone's back, under the table, who knows where the pressure comes from. And I'm not saying in this case any of that's going on. But there's a long history of making a rule, and it never gets enforced to what it is. I've always been a proponent. At one point, I was on the rules committee of the little old Supermoto series, and I was always a proponent. I said, you guys need to take a lesson, or we need to take a lesson from the golf community. Every professional golf official that walks around the PGA Tour has a rule book sticking in his front pocket right there with a pen and pencil, and every player sees the thing in his pocket. And every time there's any sort of infraction, and it doesn't matter if it's Tiger Woods or it's the guy, finishing 125th on the money list trying to make his living. It doesn't matter. If he breaks the rule, they whip out the rule book, they read what the rule book is, and it says it right there in black and white, what the rule infraction is and what the penalty is. And it's just ridiculous. It took, the FIM and all these people this long to even decide on it, to where it's a few weeks before the race. I mean, what about if you're the Yoshimura Suzuki team? You find out your rider's banned for 16 months, 2 or 3 weeks before round one of the Anaheim. So what do you do? How do you put a rider on that bike that has the qualifications? You weren't even in the running. All the top riders are already contracted and signed. But yet the infraction happened way back in April at the Seattle Supercross. They could have been, if they knew James was likely going to get a 16-month or 12-month suspension, they could have been shopping for another rider to ride that bike.
Yeah.
But they've got nothing now.
Kind of late now.
Yeah, it's too late.
And how much sponsorship, if going down that path with you, if he was going to get yanked at this stage in the game, how many other riders and teams didn't get the support that went towards his organization, went towards his racing, that they could have benefited from? How many companies like you? I mean, how much tire testing goes in to support a rider preseason, and you've got to commit, you've got to allocate assets and say, because we're with him and his team, we're going to take, this slice out of our pie for 2015 and give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from the Dunlop side, we look at the top. There's a kind of an elite level of riders. Everybody knows who those guys are. If they're on an elite team, a factory-backed team, they're going to take a little more support. Then you've got a B-level support guys. They don't take as much effort. And maybe your C-level guys are, just, hey, look, they get a little bit of product. They get the, we change tires for them at the race. But, we're not flying around the country, not taking a trip down to Florida to go test on them at their private Supercross track. So when you take a guy like a James Stewart, he's a top-level guy that gets the top support from our company, and it's the same from the suspension companies. It's the same from, they do all their motor stuff internally, obviously, but it's just, the whole thing just stinks how they handled it, how long it took, and then,
Hey, Paul's got a point here.
Yeah.
Well, again, I mean, I don't think the punishment fits the crime, but we also have to remember that James Stewart's not the only guy that's ever pissed in a bottle. And he was the one, they obviously, I get press releases, or I did get press releases when I was the editor of Cycle News after every road race, international road race. The FIM would give you a press release to say these guys were all tested, these guys were all clean. End of story.
Yeah.
So he's not the only one that's pissed in a bottle. He's the one that got caught. So he was obviously doing something that was illegal. And there's obviously something in their rule book that says if you test positive for this is the suspension. If you test positive for this is the suspension. So he's, I don't think they arbitrarily are making this stuff up. It's just unfortunate that it seems a bit heavy-handed. But.
Well, and just like Brock was saying, he's got tons of people around him all the time. It's not like he's just loading a Datsun pickup with his bike and going out to train or to test. He's got all these people around him 24/7. Who there should have had the presence of mind to go,
Right. And you can always, anybody that gets caught doing anything, you can always feel bad for them and wish it didn't happen. But the bottom line is they did it to themselves, and there's got to be some punishment, or everybody just goes around committing
coming
crime.
down. So we'll follow this one for sure.
And yeah, absolutely. And then when you're talking about, so if we flex a little bit on this rule, then how much do you flex on the next one? And then the next, and being how racers are, being how athletes are, you're always pushing the envelope nonstop. So if someone says, well, if he got away with Adderall, and what can I get away with? Maybe this next drug is going to actually really benefit me. Or, let's say if Adderall benefited James Stewart, a little bit, then what about this other performance-enhancing drug? How much will that be worth? I mean, it's just it's kind of like, where does it stop? To me, is what the situation is.
Well,
let's recapture it after the break here.
Yeah, Brockster, we have to get out to Jared Mees, but my friend, always a pleasure. I know you got to get back with the family because they like you more than we do, and so we'll catch you in 2015, my friend.
You got it, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Brock. Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
All right, coming up next, Jared Mees, 3-time AMA Grand National Champion. He'll be joining us on the hotline, but here, once again, best way to stay safe during the holiday season, by following those helpful riding hints from our good friends up at Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys have been representing riders for decades, and here's Chuck Coro from Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys to provide you with a helpful riding hint.
If your bike is taken to a tow impound yard, get it out as soon as you can, as you'll be running up storage fees. If you have collision insurance, your insurance company should get it out for you. But if you leave it too long, it will be sold on a lien sale to pay the storage fees. Leave it too long, and it will be gone.
This helpful hint was brought to you by Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys at 1-800-4BIKERS or online at russbrown.com.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year. Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7. Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown, 1-800-4BIKERS, and online at russbrown.com.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
Frazee Paint and the Mighty 1090 are proud to support the San Diego Zoo's annual Jungle Bells event presented by Cal Coast Credit Union. Starting December 13th, throughout the zoo, guests will be treated to seasonal decorations and animal-shaped light sculptures as they stroll through the zoo, or hop on the Twinkle Light Trolley for a specialized tour of the zoo's decor. Mighty 1090 sponsorship brought to you by Frazee Paint. Save big during the Frazee year-end pro sale. Hurry in through December 31st. Visit Frazee.com for details.
With Bobby Woldridge, Brock Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the Mighty 1090.
Welcome back, Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego sports leader, Mighty 1090. Be joined by Jared Mees in just a few seconds.
But we probably taking laps this morning. I would be if I was Jared Mees.
We didn't get to talk about the James Stewart conspiracy theorists out there, which I had fun talking about that in the back.
Wait, let me get my foil hat.
Uh-huh.
The black helicopters.
Mm-hmm. They're coming after us.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a post on here that was pretty interesting. It was certainly thought-provoking about, you know, who the key sponsors are in racing nowadays. And, you know, in motocross racing and supercross racing, you know, there's key sponsors like Monster.
Mm-hmm.
And their arch rival is Red Bull. And James Stewart is like I guess you'd call him the marquee rider under the Red Bull.
It's ridiculous.
The energy drink conspiracy
It's just
theory.
ridiculous because
I'm just reading what I see here on my computer
but
screen.
It pisses me off because if you're the series sponsor, what do you want? You want
people drinking Monster.
Well, no, you want the
I
best.
would.
Well, you want the best guys at your event so you can promote the crap out of your event. And James Stewart's one of those guys, and it doesn't matter what kind of energy drink he has on his helmet.
And for the record, most of the people I've interfaced with at Feld, who is the Supercross promoter, and at Monster are pretty smart, savvy people. They want butts and seats. So
right.
If that means,
that's why they're
I
doing
think James Stewart probably enhances the level of ticket sales, and I would certainly want him there. I'd drive him there.
I can guarantee you the people that make decisions at Monster are upset that James Stewart's not in that first race.
They've got to be. Yeah, for
it,
sure.
It makes them have a bigger, better show.
Yeah.
I'm just reporting the news, Paul. Don't yell at us.
No,
We're just playing conspiracy theorists.
Brock's going to be pissed you're standing on his console there.
Maybe it's
See what he did to his mic flag? Jeez.
Well, let's head out to the hotline. We're joined by Jared Mees, three-time AMA Grand National Champion. You can check out the website at jaredmees.com, MEES.com, or on Twitter at jmees1. Jared, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, very good. Happy holidays, my friend.
You too. Happy holidays.
You're not on Adderall this morning, are you?
No, just during the season.
Smart. You're smart. They don't test dirt trackers, do they?
You know, every once in a while they have a random test, but you never know when it's coming. It was a couple years ago that the last one they did, so who knows what us flag trackers are all on.
When they show up with the shoe on the right foot, they kind of go, hey, we'll pull this guy aside.
Well, they look at these guys walking through the pits. They're like, God, that guy looks like he's drunk. But you know, it's only because of the steel shoe.
That's just physiology.
Anyways,
exactly.
It's funny because I contacted Jared this week, and I'm like, I know you're probably tired of talking about racing Marc Marquez and the Super Prestigio, and Jared Mees, who's always the bomb. He's always willing to call in. Says, "Oh no, I loved it. It was great. I'll talk about it all you want." So we're going to start out by talking about the Super Prestigio. I think I read somewhere it was your first time even going to Europe. Am I right?
Yeah, it was. Yes, indeed, it was.
And there you are. You're in this little Spanish arena. Well, it's not that little, but you're in this Spanish arena. You've got Marc Marquez there. He's the world champion, MotoGP world champion. He's at home.
He's all cocky.
Everybody wants him to win. Things are going great. You're doing your practice. Brad Baker's nice and fast. He's kind of carrying the load of flying the flag for the U.S., flying the flag for dirt track, and then Brad gets hurt, and then suddenly you got a little more pressure on you. Am I right there, too?
No, not really. You know, it was a big bummer to see Brad get hurt because I was going to enjoy racing with him for sure. I mean, the speed that he has, and, of course, he's a dirt tracker. I knew that he was going to be one of the guys to beat, come to the finals and whatnot. And we would have raced each other quite a bit because we were both in the open class. So I look forward to racing against Brad. He brings his A game every time he hits the starting line, and so do I. So, when one of us beats each other, that we each brought our A game, and we won it fair and square,
And then you get off in the main event. They pit the dirt trackers against. I mean, that's your first shot at Marc Marquez, and there was like a little more than a little, but there was some contact in the first corner, and it's like when you look at your video, it's like amazing anybody made it through there, but you do. And then it comes down to finally after you work your way through, it's you versus him, and he's ahead of you. And I was under the impression that I'm like, man, if we just had a few more laps, he just keeps poking it in there, something might happen. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, definitely. They asked me at the end of the night, what would you change? And I said, man, you guys ran such a first-class program. I had lots of fun. Everything was awesome. I mean, I had a great time. I couldn't think of one thing to change, but the last race of the night, let's bump the laps up from 12 to, say, 15 or even 20. When you do 12-second lap times and you have a starting gate like that and you go down a really long straightaway with no front brake, something's bound to happen. And I thought the starting gate with a long straightaway was very exciting for the fans and the riders, and I thought it was awesome. But maybe just a couple more laps to let a guy that has a mistake to maybe make up for it. But in the end, it was a lot of fun, and we ran them down. It just I didn't want to do anything to where we were going to both end up on the ground. I wanted to kind of race him with some respect, and I made some mistakes, and then he made some mistakes that forced me to make a mistake, and it was like all you could do for 12 laps as quick as you can. It just felt like you put everything out on the line for 12 laps, and boom, it was over before you knew it.
When you're racing him like that, and you're right behind him, and is he another racer at that point? Are you aware of the fact that, okay, he's Marc Marquez, he's the MotoGP world champion, we're racing in Spain, I probably shouldn't knock him down, or does that just go out of your mind and he might as well be Brad Baker at that point?
No, he was Brad Baker at that point. I mean, believe me, if I'd have got a really good shot at him to run up underneath of him and move him out of the way, I would have. But, to go in there and kamikaze both of us would definitely not have been the way to go. But, yeah, I mean, if I could have got to him, I would have definitely moved him out of the way for sure. I mean, he's there to race. I'm there to race. I've seen him, bump some people out of the way on the road race MotoGP side of things going 200 miles an hour. And everybody's seen me make contact before with some other riders, and it would have been a good show. But
hey,
it
Rubbin
was
is
a
racing.
great show. Yeah, Rubbin's racing.
Yeah.
It was a good show. We showed up, and we won the open class and won everything all the way up to the super final, and just came up a little short. One little bobble there in the first corner. It was a stall. When we came in the first corner, we stalled the engine and was able to actually keep it rolling and bump it off really fast, and didn't really lose a whole lot of time, I guess you could say, rather than having to sit there and kick the thing or something. But like I said, there's no excuses. He beat me straight up, and I'm really looking forward to coming back next year.
Now, how big of an advantage is it for him being there on his bike? Did you ship a bike over? Or did you just take some suspension parts and put it on a bike that somebody gave you? How did that work?
Yes, exactly. Thanks to Honda Spain, Honda Impala, they gave me a brand new 2015 CRF 450 Honda, and I was welcome to bring what I felt was needed to get the job done. And I basically just brought my Race Tech suspension out and like a hammerhead brake pedal and stuff like that, just to make me feel a little comfortable, and some Weiss Racing triple clamps, just a couple small little things. But I wasn't really, able, or I probably could have, but the time was more of an essence really to, do any kind of motor or engine work. Not that you needed much there. I mean, it was a very small track, but basically it was a bone stock motorcycle that I put suspension on and some triple clamps and a couple things to make me feel comfortable. And we D&D piped it well, and we went at it. Brad Baker had the same thing too. He was basically doing the same thing I was with the suspension and the pipe and some wheels and stuff like that. So the biggest difference from, our 450s that we race here and the 450 I raced over there was definitely the 17-inch tires. Was, basically to look at one bike than the other was the only thing that was really different.
Now, is the different size wheels, is it just a feel thing?
Yeah, at first I was, it's more or less just getting the confidence in yourself that you have 17-inch wheels. Some places I thought they worked better than our 19-inch wheels. Some places, they worked just as good. There was no excuses for me to where I didn't get used to them good enough or anything like that. First few laps, yeah, it's in your mind, okay, I got 17s, but the motorcycle did the same thing. I thought maybe the back tire definitely works better than the front tire. If I had to get really picky, the front would push a little bit more than the rear, but that could be more on geometry side on things, or just some front fork settings or something like that could maybe change that. But it seemed like everybody tripped the front more than lose the rear.
All right, here's a good question for you. How badly would you like to get him on a rough and tumble half mile or mile on big Harleys?
Marc Marquez. I mean, it would be really cool to see what he would do on one for sure, or a mile or something like that. The little short tracks, a lot of people go out there and ride them. They're take their motocross bike, just go out there and ride them, and they're kind of like a small little crapshoot. You can only go so fast around there, and people get their 450s out and just play around on them and have fun. So to get more serious as far as saying, hey, is he a really, really bad to the bone flat tracker? Yeah, you'd have to get him on like a half mile or mile and see where he stack up. But he's a motorcycle racer. He's the best in the world. So I think he'd be able to figure it out with some time for sure.
Now, what's more difficult? Is a half mile more difficult than a mile, or does it work the other way around?
It kind of depends on who you are, and I guess kind of what bike you're on as well. If you're on a slower motorcycle and you're kind of a bigger person, you're probably going to pick the half mile. If you're on a very fast motorcycle and you're a tiny person, people kind of maybe forte the miles a little bit. So it kind of just depends. Anymore, my opinion is kind of what you're on and what you feel more comfortable with. Like a guy like me, if I like the miles, I have more fun on the miles, but my results definitely show a lot more strength in the half miles. And then you look at a guy like Brian Smith, who's would definitely probably pick a mile over everything. So just kind of goes on hand to hand on what your personal preference is.
As far as 2015, is your program pretty much the same, identical to what you had this year?
Pretty close. I got a couple pretty good irons in the fire yet, but as far as the mechanic, the Rogers Racing, SDI installation, we're all going to be together. The same people is going to be involved. It's just there might be a couple little things that might come out in the works pretty quick here.
And going into it, obviously it came down to you and Brian Smith at the end. Is that something you would anticipate happening again? Or I guess Brad Baker will be a little more healthy and we can maybe get him up there as well. But is it, I mean, it seems it's be the same, 4 or 5 guys every year.
Yeah, the biggest thing anymore is with the different brands that are getting ran and whatnot is you got to take a look at the schedule and see, what there is for races. Is there a lot of singles races? Is there a lot of mile races? What's what? And right now there seems to be quite a bit of mile races on the schedule and not as many singles races. So I definitely would pick Brian Smith to be a big threat for 2015 Grand National Championship. And, Brad Baker's going to be healthy, and I think, this was his first year with the Factory Harley-Davidson team, so I also choose him to be a big threat. And Kenny Coolbeth as well, he's going to be tough. And, all the guys are going to be tough right down the line. Jake Johnson, they're Sammy Halbert, they're all going to be tough. But, if I had to pick a couple, I would say definitely Brian Smith. He's very hungry, and what happened this year with the last couple races there, I know that he's going to be really, coming out twice as hungry. And, the schedule looks pretty good for a lot of mile races, and that's definitely his forte.
Now, a lot of people don't realize, just regular folk out here, we have Josh Hayes and Melissa Paris in here, and she races, and he races, obviously, 4-time AMA Superbike champion.
Yeah, I think we have a similar combination.
Now, this is a little more intense because Jared races against his wife every week. Once the series starts.
Wow, he's a brave man.
I'm sure this question's been asked to you a million times, but how do you do that? You're obviously worrying about yourself and then having your wife out there and having to worry about her, or do you just kind of put that out of your mind for 25 laps?
Yeah, I think when we come to the day of the race, it's kind of like all business for both of us, and we know what we're there to do. She's raced motorcycles all her life as well as myself, so seeing her on a motorcycle is nothing surprising. So, I started dating her when we were racing, and I married her while we were racing, and we're still racing. So it's basically just the way life is for the both of us. So there's nothing really awkward. I mean, yeah, if she falls down or something happens there, it's a little bit of a worry. But I know she's out there doing what she loves, and I'm out there doing what I love. So life goes on.
And I think she cut you some slack, because when I look at it, it's like I think she could beat him every time. She just lets him go.
Well, that's a good wife right there.
That's a keeper.
Yeah, it's a keeper, exactly.
One more thing before we let you go. The rules changed last year, and they got rid of the restrictors. Is that made a big difference? Is it? Yeah, just tell me your opinion on the rules and the parity in the sport, and if things are going in the right direction.
Yeah, I thought last year, it's been a long time coming. There's no doubt that the Kawasaki out there has been a really strong motorcycle and very tough to beat on the miles. And, there was a lot of discrepancy going on with that motorcycle being unrestricted and being water-cooled and overhead cam, and it didn't have a weight rule at one time. And then it had a weight rule, and we got 1 more millimeter restrictor, and it was just like, guys, we're still running a restricted, carbureted, push-rod, air-cooled motor, and you're allowing this thing over here to be unrestricted. So if you put both motorcycles on paper and was just like the pros and the cons, nothing made sense. So they pulled the restrictors not only in the XRs, but they pulled it in everything. And the rule is right now you're not allowed to run a restrictor. So the 1000s, the 1200s, the 800s, there's no restrictors anymore. We have the restrictors are basically our carburetor or throttle body sizes. We have a maximum and a minimum. And we have, the spec 19-inch Dunlop tire that they're basically saying is a restrictor, as, you can only put so much power to the ground with that tire, and that's basically what they're trying to make it as a level playing field. And there's definitely some racetracks out there, like the Colonial Downs Mega Mile in Virginia. It's like a 1.1 miles or 1.25 miles or something, and you definitely see the displacement take over there, them 1000s and them 1200s. So, I mean, in some sense, it's like, hey, they wanted to just end the crying and the whining and everything by taking all the restrictors out, but you also look at it like, wow, we got some 700s out there racing against some 1250s or 1200s, so you got almost double the displacement and size racing against each other. But like I said, the ultimate restrictor and the ultimate level playing field is that rear tire. So right now we haven't seen the bigger displacement motorcycles really shine yet, but I definitely think there's a good possibility you could see something happen down the road for sure.
Well, Jared, we appreciate you making time for us, my friend, and we're going to definitely have you back on in 2015 to follow up with you.
Right on, man. I look forward to it. Merry Christmas, guys. Happy New Year, and stay safe.
Yeah, thanks, Jared.
Yeah, Merry
Thanks,
Christmas.
Man. See you guys.
Bye.
Once again, you can follow him on Twitter at jmees1 or check out the website jaredmees.com. That's Jared, Jared.
I dig
Mees,
these dirt track guys.
He's a quality guy. He's obviously a really good motorcycle racer, and he'll be in that thing for as long as he decides to do it. He'll always be a contender for that championship. So it's always nice to talk to him, and obviously very well spoken, knows his sport very well, and he's a good ambassador.
And obviously recognized for his what he brings to the sport by being invited over to SUPERPRESTIGio.
Yeah, and I think he did a good job over there, obviously, and again, that's opened it up for him, and he'll be invited back every year, and I think you give him another shot at that Marquez, and I think we might have a different result.
Maybe we should go.
I think we should. Bike Week Radio from Spain.
Yeah.
I'd have to brush up on my Espanol.
See.
Paella.
Well, coming up next, Scott Claus, a.k.a. Scott Cox, Santa Claus, Santa Cox, whatever you want to say.
Got a big announcement.
Yeah. Well,
got to stay tuned.
$100 gift cards were given away, and all these people did was follow us on Bike Week Radio Show's Facebook page. Also joined to be on our mailing list through bikeweekradioshow.com. And as always, Scott,
they will be rewarded handsomely.
Awards. Indeed. And so $100 gift card winners coming up next as well. We'll wrap up our last live show of the year coming up next right here on Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego Sports Leader, Mighty 1090.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year. Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7. Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown, 1-800-4BIKERS, and online at russbrown.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Fillmore, KTM Factory Superbike Racer, and you're listening to Bike Week Radio Show.
Welcome back, Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. Final live segment. Next week we have our Best of show. And
not that they aren't all best of.
Well, if you want to brush up and do your homework, just head to bikeweekradioshow.com. You can check out the podcast, or also available on iTunes, because we did have a stellar year here on the program.
Stellar.
But before we get there, Scott Cox, once again, we doing a little winter cleaning. Goes through $100 gift cards, what he finds, and of course, what
in the
I
back
would have
of the
done,
sleigh.
I would have pocketed those for myself. Paul would have pocketed them for himself. Scott, the giving man that he is, goes, no. We shall share these with the Bike Week Radio Show
belong
listeners.
to our listeners and our fans.
Well, $100 gift cards. And the first one, Dave Kramer, congratulations. We have a $100 gift card coming your way. And he signed up through bikeweekradioshow.com. So we have all his contact information. We'll be contacting Dave, as well as Michelle McCain. Congratulations. McClain. Michelle McClain. You also have a $100 gift card. And Dwight E. Anderson. Congratulations to you three, winners of our $100 gift cards. And
ho, ho, ho.
There you go, Scott
So those
Cox.
were three of my family members using fake names.
That's right.
Perfect.
Wouldn't surprise me. But we're putting together our best of show, which will air next week. And I was running through some of the guests we had. And a very difficult job, mind you, to pick out this guy over this guy.
Yeah, how do you select the cream from the cream?
Exactly. They're all A-plus heavy hitters. And so in February we had Larry Huffman on, and Larry was a fantastic interview. I know we had fun talking with him. He also made a rejoiner for us that we've had fun playing throughout the year, and so we'll be excited to play some clips from Larry Huffman.
He was the guy. Supermouth.
Mm-hmm.
He's still Supermouth.
And it's funny because to me, he is Supercross, and he always will be.
He is. There's no question.
I almost feel bad for the kids of today that didn't get to have him.
But there's been so much distance now. They're going, when they hear it, it's like, well, was that from a movie or a TV show? It's like, no, that's what we used to enjoy every weekend.
Yep.
Also, we had Kevin Schwantz joined us earlier in the year, I think around March.
Little potty mouth show.
Yeah. Paul Carruthers couldn't... I was surprised
contain himself.
Yeah. When are you serving your suspension?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if the FCC starts testing for C's candy, thanks to Scott Cox bringing us in.
That was Pat Cox. Pat Cox made sure. She stopped me when I was getting ready to pull out of the driveway and said,
take this to Paul and Bobby.
Exactly.
Well, I love her, and these are, you'll notice these at the beginning of next year because they'll be right above my belt line.
She's my favorite boss because we know who makes the calls around here. It's not Scott Cox. Pat Cox
Damn straight.
is the one who makes the calls around here. So my favorite boss, Pat Cox. Thanks again.
She told me that right when I met her, too.
Last night I was bumming so hard when I watched the Chargers start to stink it up, almost from the first snap.
Mm-hmm.
And she ran into the kitchen, and she fired up the oven, and she made me these unbelievable, fresh, hot. They were burning my tongue as I was eating them, these cowboy cookies she makes that are just... I had some for you guys, but
you ate
quite
them all?
honest, I was drowning in my sorrow, so I just ate them all.
Giddy up.
last night.
See, once a year I make Aussie meat pies. You've been to Australia,
I'd
right?
like one of those.
So you've had an Aussie meat pie. So
I haven't had a Paul Carruthers Aussie meat pie, but
you haven't, or you
no,
have?
I haven't.
No. Okay,
I've never had the.
So like once a year, I break these things out, and I spend a couple hours and make these things, and we have
You actually source the ingredients and make them from scratch?
Well, yeah, pretty much. I don't kill the cow.
They don't
or
have like
anything,
a Swanson's logo stamped on the top?
No. So anyway, I make these Aussie meat pies, and we have some friends over and enjoy some football. And with the Chargers win last night, I think we're gonna have to. I might have to make those every single game for the rest
Now
of the
you're
year.
committed.
Done.
They're now the good.
How
luck
many of
Aussie
those
pies.
meat pies got thrown at your flat screen early in the game?
Well, yeah, true, because we didn't eat until things were a little bad. So
Well, you got to spike them with Adderall. Keep everybody focused, in line, relaxed.
Adderall pies.
Adderall pies. Meat and Adderall. We're also joined by Kyle Petty. Expect maybe some Kyle Petty next week in the show.
Oh, yeah, that was
and
a
that was
fun
a fun
show.
interview.
That was a lot
He
of
took
fun.
up the entire show.
Well, it's Kyle Petty, for God's sakes.
Well, and if I remember, he was having so much fun talking with us, and we were having so much fun talking with him. He was scheduled to do another call-in for.
He blew it off.
He blew right through it.
He literally had like a national feed. He said, next time.
Yeah, apologize
Next
for
year.
him.
because they weren't motorcycle guys.
Yeah,
Exactly. They weren't
just,
as cool as we were.
Yeah, you get tired of talking about cars if you're a car guy.
Yeah, Johnny and Slapdick in the morning show, whatever it is, and so we blew him off.
Slapdick. Is that what
Bobby,
you just said
come on.
in the holiday season? You
I
threw
don't
out the
remember what-
Slapdick.
What's Nana? Oh, but speaking of which, make sure Nana gets the lion's share of that box of C's candy.
She's not seeing that.
I'm trying to think who else we had on. It's honestly, it's going to be difficult to cut down some of these best ofs. But another highlight I wrote down when I was going through, we had our 2nd year anniversary, and of course we brought back on our favorite guest. Kel Carruthers made an appearance in studio.
By far the nicest male Carruthers.
By far, by a long shot.
All I have on him is height.
Talented, too. He's quite talented.
There's a world champion
When's
in
he
our
coming
family,
back?
and it's not me.
We don't have to wait until Father's Day again, do we? We should have him back.
He's always available
any old time.
for us.
Yeah, and so it was fun always catching up with Kel, celebrating our 2-year anniversary. And we also had Barry Weiss, the one and only Barry Weiss, made an appearance
Storage Wars.
at Saquon, and we were able to snag a few minutes from him. And what a storyteller Barry is.
Yeah, that guy is, when you hang out with him, you got to wear a full coverage helmet and knee protection.
Well, he's another guy. Paul and Barry, I always have my hand around the B button just to make sure that we're
You make one mistake in one show, and that's what you get branded as, is the cussing son of a...
Paul Carruthers in studio, as always. And we are also joined in October, Alex Chacon, the guy who had 12 million views on a YouTube video or 20 million views, or something insane of his trip around the world, and took 3 years over 75 countries.
And he's self-described as the epic selfie guy.
The epic selfie
He's
guy.
got this amazing ability to photograph himself, which I lack.
And also, we just heard the rejoiner from Chris Fillmore. We were joined last month at the IMS show, and he told the story of getting rescued by the Boy Scouts.
Hey, I'm an Eagle Scout. It's what we do. It's how we roll.
And for the sake of Paul Carruthers' new position, he's probably pretty excited that Chris Fillmore's still not wandering out in the woods, that the Boy Scouts found him, and he's able to
Yeah, we're
going to
put Chris Fillmore to work this year like the rest of those
Maybe you need
racers.
to buy an extra bag of popcorn from the Boy Scouts this year, or whatever they sell. The Girl Scouts
saving
sell the
Chris.
cookies. Yeah, exactly. But hey, you know what? You guys essentially saved my ass, too, by bringing Chris back to civilization.
So I've got to do a shout-out to somebody
Yes.
who has been important in my my professional life, my personal life, Mr. Frank Miyake and his wife, Barbara. They retired this Thursday after 30-plus years, and most of our listeners will know them as really the people behind Arcade Chain and XL Rim. So all the top racers use an Arcade Chain and XL Rim. The A60 rim is kind of the de facto rim in Supercross and motocross racing. It's because of Frank Miyake. And, Brock, and Frank's a friend of many of us. Brock's had some interaction with him, but we had a lot of fun with Ricky Johnson and Bob Weber and Farabauer with their, among the people that came to their farewell dinner the other night. So happy retirement, Frank and Barbara, and hope to see you again very soon, since they are neighbors. I never see them. I go to Europe, that's where I see them because they're always at shows, always traveling. They'll stick around Encinitas a little more and maybe even toast them with some eggnog over the holidays.
And, of course, give out the shout-outs as we wrap up our last live show of the year. Pat Osborne, Gene Turner, and Phil Kottner.
Epic Phil.
Fantastic work out of them all year and their support behind the scenes. You don't get to hear them enough, but trust me, they have a huge, huge impact of letting us do what we do on the air.
Very true.
And Geico and Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are two major sponsors here that help us stay afloat. And, of course, the listeners. Fantastic work out of you guys. Always a pleasure seeing you guys at our live events. And hopefully we'll get out and about once again, especially with Supercross just around the corner.
Yeah. Look for us at A1 on the 3rd of January, Anaheim Stadium. Or I guess they call it, is it Angel Stadium, Anaheim?
It's Angel Stadium of Anaheim.
In Los Angeles.
We'll be hanging out with
but they're moving
Alex.
it to Tustin.
Yeah.
We'll be hanging out with Alex and the boys from Legends and Heroes.
Heck yeah.
So look for us there. We'll also be hanging out with our friends from Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorney.
There it is.
I wonder if Kitty's going to be there. You and Kitty, you got a little thing for Anaheim
boy.
Supercross, Bobby?
I don't kiss and tell.
Yeah.
Paul, great work out of you this year, my friend. We'll see you in 2015.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little Christmas shopping on my way home.
I love it. I'll act surprised.
I never, ever want to be too prepared, so I kind of wait.
That's right. Well, today's the day where you really hammer the bargains. Actually, the day after. Maybe you want to put it off.
Well, yeah, because there's like 4 things left. You can get a deal on 3 of them.
You might get one of those leftover meat pies right in the forehead.
Scott Cox, great work out of you as well.
Thank you, Bobby. Another great season. You know, we're deep into year 3, so thanks to all of our sponsors and supporters and great guests and fans. And Brock, we wish we were here because we're having a group hug. We're actually, just truth be known, we ate your box of C's, but there'll be parts of it left here when you return to the studio in January.
Thanks again. We'll be back next Sunday with the Best of show, last one of 2014, then we'll catch you all next year. Have a happy and safe holiday season. We'll be back next Sunday right here on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090.
You've been listening to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Join us next week for more Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego's Sports Leader.